He smoothed the collar of his worn shirt carefully, the fabric softened by years of washing, but clean enough for tonight. Ethan Reynolds stared at his reflection, wondering if the stranger in the mirror would be enough. At 34, he wasn't used to thinking of himself as a man on a date. He was a father first, a healthcare worker second, and somewhere far down the line, just Ethan, the gay man who had spent the last 2 years of his life raising a child who wasn't legally his. The envelope in his dresser drawer now contained $50 less, money set aside for emergencies, for Mason's upcoming birthday present. But tonight, Ethan had convinced himself it was worth the risk. The Boston restaurant wasn't 5-star, but with its polished wooden booths and navy linens, it felt worlds away from his cramped apartment where superhero figures and children's books claimed every surface. Earlier, while getting ready, Mason had looked up from his dinosaur toys and asked a question that made Ethan's heart clench. If you find a new boyfriend, will Papa Alex be sad in heaven? His son's innocent eyes held genuine concern, not judgment. Ethan had knelt down, pulled the 7-year-old close, and explained that love wasn't like a cup that could only hold so much. Papa Alex would want us both to be happy, buddy, and he'll always be your papa, no matter what. Now, sitting at the small table by the window, Ethan placed his wallet carefully in his pocket, mentally calculating how to stretch $50 into a decent meal without looking cheap. The hostess had seated him 10 minutes ago, and with each passing minute, hope and anxiety performed their familiar dance. His blind date was already 15 minutes late. When his phone finally buzzed, the message that appeared froze him in place. Wow, you actually went. I was just messing with you. Sorry, but you're not really my type. Not worth the Uber. A second message followed almost immediately. You seem nice, but seriously, you thought I was actually coming? The heat of humiliation crept up Ethan's neck. Around him, the restaurant carried on, forks scraping plates, soft music, conversations of people who were wanted. He reached for his water glass, willing himself not to break. The server approached with a polite smile. Would you like to order something, sir? Ethan shook his head quickly. No, thank you. I'm still waiting. But he wasn't. He knew it. At a nearby table sat Michael Donovan, CEO of Donovan Foods, watching this scene unfold. He'd noticed Ethan the moment he walked in, the careful way he'd smoothed his clothes, the hopeful glances toward the door. Now, seeing the devastation flash across the stranger's face, Michael made a decision that would change both their lives forever. When a steaming plate of pasta was set before Ethan minutes later, his confusion was evident. I didn't order this, he said softly. The server smiled. It's been taken care of. Someone requested it for you. Michael approached, his voice gentle but firm. It's not charity. It's a reminder that you deserve to eat, even if the world tries to tell you otherwise. This is a story about second chances, about finding family in unexpected places, and about the courage it takes to believe in love again after loss. If you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever wondered if kindness still exists in this world, subscribe to Heart Stories for more true tales of resilience that remind us all that sometimes the most beautiful beginnings come after our most painful endings. A week later, Ethan pushed open the door of a small cafe tucked between the community health clinic where he worked and the public library. The familiar scent of coffee and cinnamon welcomed him, a rare indulgence in his carefully budgeted life. He froze when he spotted Michael Donovan sitting near the window, laptop open, sleeves of his tailored shirt rolled up just enough to make him look less like a CEO and more like someone simply passing the morning. Make it 2 and add oat milk to his, Michael called to the barista before Ethan could order. When their eyes met, Michael's smile held no pity, only genuine pleasure at the coincidence. Ethan approached cautiously, still haunted by the memory of their unusual first meeting. You remembered my coffee order, he said quietly, setting his cup down. I remembered you, Michael replied simply. The honesty in his voice made Ethan both uncomfortable and intrigued. Their conversation flowed with surprising ease. Michael admitted he had looked Ethan up online after that night, discovering his work at the community health clinic. Ethan tensed, suddenly aware of the vast social and financial gap between them. "I'm not a charity case," he said firmly, voicing his fear of being viewed as a project rather than a person. Michael's expression grew serious. "My company makes organic food more accessible. I'm interested in your perspective, not in saving you." The straightforward response disarmed Ethan's defensiveness, allowing a genuine connection to form between them, two men from different worlds finding unexpected common ground. Days later, Michael invited Ethan to a nutrition workshop hosted by Donovan Foods. The event was filled with pediatricians, nutritionists, and wealthy mothers in designer clothes. Ethan felt painfully out of place until the discussion turned to children's food labels. When he raised his hand and asked about affordable options for single parents working multiple jobs, the room grew quiet. "What should we look for on labels when both time and money are working against us?" His voice was steady, carrying the weight of lived experience. The panelists' rehearsed answers faltered, but Michael watched with quiet admiration as Ethan brought reality into a room that rarely encountered it. After the workshop, Michael overheard a board member muttering about Ethan being not quite our demographic. Michael's usually diplomatic demeanor hardened as he defended Ethan, though the interaction left him visibly troubled. Later, he confessed to Ethan about the pressure to tone down his identity as the company prepared for its IPO. "Some investors think an openly gay CEO might alienate conservative markets," he admitted, the vulnerability in his voice revealing how deeply this cut. Their connection deepened when Michael accompanied Ethan to pick up Mason from the library. The boy was initially shy, clutching his dinosaur book defensively. But when Michael knelt to his level and asked genuine questions about his favorite dinosaurs, Mason's reserve melted. "You smell like Papa Alex," Mason suddenly announced, causing Ethan to freeze. The innocent observation hung in the air, a ghost from the past entering their fragile new present. Michael handled the moment with gentle grace, telling Mason that was the nicest compliment anyone had given him in a long time. Walking home, Ethan finally shared the story he'd been carrying alone, how he and Alex had met in nursing school, fallen in love, planned a future, how a sudden car accident had left Mason without a father, and Ethan fighting a legal system that didn't recognize him as family. The custody battle with Alex's mother, who believed a gay man couldn't properly raise her grandson. The nights he'd held Mason through nightmares, wondering if he was enough. Michael listened without judgment, his silent support more powerful than any words could have been. When they reached Ethan's apartment building, something had shifted between them, a deeper understanding, a bridge between their separate lives beginning to form. Neither man was looking for love, but sometimes life offers exactly what we need when we've stopped expecting anything at all. The lesson revealed itself in their unfolding story. True connections aren't built on sameness, but on the courage to be vulnerable, to step outside comfortable boundaries, and to recognize worth in unexpected places. Sometimes the people who see us most clearly are those who have nothing to gain except the simple joy of truly knowing another human being. The first time Mason called Michael Papa happened during a fever-induced delirium that left both men frozen in surprise. Ethan had called Michael in panic when Mason's temperature spiked to 103, and Michael had immediately abandoned an important investor meeting to meet them at the hospital. Now, in the sterile white room, Mason's small hand reached out, grasping Michael's sleeve as he murmured the name before drifting back to sleep. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken emotions. Michael's eyes met Ethan's across the hospital bed, neither quite knowing how to navigate this new territory. Their relationship had been developing slowly over weeks: dinners at Ethan's apartment, weekend outings with Mason, quiet conversations after the boy was asleep. But this unconscious acknowledgement from Mason made everything suddenly, terrifyingly real. "I'm sorry, Ethan whispered, his exhaustion evident in the dark circles beneath his eyes. "He's confused. The fever." Michael gently cut him off. "Don't apologize. I'm honored." The sincerity in his voice made something in Ethan's chest tighten, Their growing closeness hadn't gone unnoticed in Michael's professional world. During a tense board meeting, several members expressed concerns about Michael's public image as the company prepared for its IPO. Perhaps a lower profile with your personal life would be advisable, suggested one elderly board member, his discomfort with the word boyfriend evident in his careful phrasing. Michael had built Donovan Foods from scratch, turning his grandmother's organic recipes into a national brand committed to accessible, healthy eating. Now, he found himself caught between the company he'd created and the life he was building with Ethan and Mason. The irony wasn't lost on him. A company founded on authenticity was asking him to hide who he truly was. Sarah Robertson, the oldest board member and Michael's longtime mentor, found him brooding in his office after the meeting. Unlike the others, she had supported him from the beginning, having lost her own son to suicide after years of hiding his sexuality. "Don't let them make you choose between success and happiness," she advised quietly. "I've seen that road before, and it leads nowhere good." Meanwhile, Ethan faced his own battles. When enrolling Mason in a new school closer to his workplace, the principal's demeanor chilled noticeably after learning about their family situation. "We need proper documentation of legal guardianship," she insisted, her tone suggesting the paperwork would never be enough. The subtle discrimination was familiar to Ethan, not outright rejection, but the thousand small ways society reminded him his family didn't fit the acceptable mold. When Michael arrived unexpectedly during this tense meeting, his influential name opening doors immediately, Ethan felt conflicted. The principal's sudden change in attitude highlighted the inequality of their positions, sparking their first serious argument later that evening. "I don't need you to rescue us," Ethan insisted, his pride wounded. "We've managed on our own before you came along. Is that what you think I'm doing, rescuing you?" Michael's frustration was evident. "Maybe I'm just trying to use whatever advantages I have to make things easier for people I care about." The distance between their worlds had never felt greater. Ethan had spent years fighting systems designed to exclude him, while Michael's privilege had largely shielded him from such battles. Their reconciliation came days later, both men acknowledging the need to better understand each other's perspectives. Their relationship faced its greatest test when a business tabloid published an exposé questioning Michael's judgment in dating a clinic worker with a dubious claim to parenthood. The article dredged up Ethan's custody battle, painting him as an opportunist using a child to advance his position. Mason came home from school in tears after overhearing parents discussing the story. The public scrutiny forced difficult conversations. Some board members pressured Michael to distance himself from Ethan until after the IPO, for a brief, terrible moment. Michael considered it, the culmination of years of work hanging in the balance. But watching Mason curl protectively against Ethan that evening, their matching expressions of worry as they tried to protect each other, Michael recognized what truly mattered. The next morning, he called a press conference, publicly defending his relationship and announcing a new Donovan Foods initiative supporting diverse families. "I built this company on the belief that everyone deserves nourishment, not just physical, but emotional. I won't compromise those values for profit," he stated firmly, his gaze steady into the cameras. The stock price dipped initially, then rebounded as consumers responded positively to his authenticity. That night, surrounded by the simple comfort of Ethan's apartment, Michael realized that sometimes the greatest demonstrations of love aren't grand gestures, but the quiet decision to stand beside someone when the easier path would be to walk away. In choosing Ethan and Mason, he wasn't sacrificing success. He was redefining it on more meaningful terms. The envelope arrived on an ordinary Tuesday, its official university seal causing Ethan's heart to skip. He opened it with trembling fingers, reading and rereading the words full scholarship, accelerated medical technician program, California, 1 year. An opportunity that could transform their financial future, nearly doubling his income upon completion. The kind of chance he'd stopped believing would come his way. His first instinct was refusal. Moving Mason across the country seemed impossible, and leaving him behind unthinkable. His relationship with Michael had deepened over months into something neither man had expected, a partnership built on mutual respect and growing love. The thought of sacrificing this newfound stability made his stomach clench with anxiety. When he finally shared the news, Michael's response surprised him. Instead of disappointment or relief, Michael's eyes lit with genuine excitement. "This is exactly what you've been working toward," he said, already brainstorming logistics. It was Mason, however, who delivered the unexpected emotional blow. "Papa Alex would want you to go," the boy said solemnly over dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets. "He always said you were super smart." The simple statement, delivered with childish certainty, brought tears to Ethan's eyes. In the midst of building a new life, these occasional glimpses of Alex's continued presence in Mason's heart both comforted and haunted him. The practical reality quickly dampened their initial enthusiasm. Ethan's precarious legal guardianship of Mason meant temporary arrangements were complicated. If Mason stayed with his grandmother, she might use the opportunity to seek permanent custody. The solution Michael proposed, becoming Mason's temporary guardian, was both perfect and terrifying. "You'd do that?" Ethan asked, voice barely audible. The magnitude of entrusting his son to someone else, even someone he was growing to love, felt overwhelming. "I would," Michael replied simply, "but only if you both want it." The courtroom was cold and impersonal, the judge peering over reading glasses as she reviewed their unusual request. Alex's mother, elegant in her grief-hardened disapproval, argued passionately against the arrangement. "My grandson barely knows this man," she insisted, gesturing toward Michael. "He should be with blood family." Michael's testimony revealed how deeply he'd come to understand Mason, from his nighttime fear of shadows to his precise ritual for eating cereal. When questioned about his motivations, Michael spoke not of charity or obligation, but of love, for both Mason and Ethan. "I'm not trying to replace anyone," he explained. "I'm just offering another person in this child's corner." The judge's decision granting temporary guardianship came with strict conditions, including regular visits from Alex's mother, a compromise that left no one entirely satisfied but offered a workable path forward. The night before Ethan's departure, they created a paper chain calendar, each link representing one day until his return. Mason decorated each piece with dinosaurs and rockets, his excitement about the project masking the anxiety of separation. California proved both opportunity and challenge. Ethan threw himself into the intensive program, his evenings filled with video calls where Mason eagerly shared new adventures with Michael. But distance created unexpected strains. Mason experienced nightmares and tantrums about missing Ethan. Michael, despite his resources, discovered the profound difference between occasional parenting and full-time responsibility. Meanwhile, professional complications mounted. The IPO had succeeded, but a faction of conservative shareholders began questioning Michael's leadership, citing his unconventional family arrangement as evidence of poor judgment. His dedication to Mason meant missed meetings and rescheduled presentations, fueling criticisms that he was prioritizing personal matters over company interests. Ethan faced his own temptations. Jake, a charismatic instructor who made no secret of his interest, offered companionship during lonely evenings. Though Ethan maintained boundaries, the attention highlighted the vulnerability of a long-distance relationship still in its formative stages. Could what he and Michael were building survive a year apart when it had barely been tested together? The crisis point came when Mason developed pneumonia, requiring hospitalization. Ethan, in the midst of crucial exams, was torn between his son's immediate needs and the future he was building for them both. Michael handled the emergency with calm efficiency, sleeping in an uncomfortable hospital chair for 3 nights straight. When Ethan managed a brief visit, he found Michael exhausted but steadfast. His laptop balanced precariously as he managed both company affairs and Mason's care. "I thought I knew what being responsible for someone meant," Michael confessed that night, his usual confidence stripped away. "But this is different. The stakes feel impossibly high." Ethan understood then that their separation had forced Michael to experience the weight of parenthood in ways theoretical discussions never could. For all his resources and intelligence, nothing had prepared Michael for the bone-deep fear of being responsible for a child's well-being, the constant second-guessing of decisions, the overwhelming love that made every small triumph or setback feel monumental. In that sterile hospital room, watching Michael gently adjust Mason's blankets while reviewing quarterly projections, Ethan realized something profound. The greatest test of love isn't grand romantic gestures or passionate declarations. It's showing up consistently, especially when it's difficult. It's choosing commitment when easier options exist. Most importantly, it's growing together through challenges rather than despite them. Their journey was far from over, the outcome still uncertain. But in that moment, seeing his two worlds merge in this unexpected way, Ethan allowed himself to believe that what they were building might be strong enough not just to survive distance, but to emerge from it more resilient than before. The Boston air felt different when Ethan returned, crisp with autumn and possibility. His new credentials, certified medical technician, represented more than professional advancement. They were proof that second chances existed, that life could expand beyond loss. Standing before the staff entrance of Boston Memorial Hospital, in his freshly pressed scrubs, Ethan barely recognized himself in the reflection of the glass doors. Inside his apartment, changes were equally profound. Mason had grown inches taller, his vocabulary suddenly peppered with words like investment and shareholders, Michael's influence evident in the most unexpected ways. The boy moved between them with the easy confidence of someone securely loved, no longer clinging to Ethan with the desperate fear that had followed Alex's death. "You're different, Ed," Michael observed quietly their first night together, after Mason had finally fallen asleep amid excited stories and long-awaited hugs. "California changed me," Ethan admitted. "Being responsible only for myself, even temporarily. I'd forgotten what that felt like." The statement hung between them. Neither accusation nor apology, simply truth. The final custody hearing loomed like a storm on the horizon. Alex's mother hadn't given up her fight, filing new objections based on Ethan's abandonment during his studies. The courthouse felt oppressively familiar as they took their seats, Mason sandwiched protectively between them. When the unexpected witness appeared, Alex's cousin Ryan, whom Ethan had only met briefly at the funeral, the courtroom collectively held its breath. Ryan spoke not of legal definitions of family, but of conversations with Alex before his death. "My cousin told me if anything ever happened to him, there was no one he trusted more than Ethan to raise his son," Ryan testified, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his face. Alex would have been proud of the family Mason has now. The judge's chambers fell silent as Mason himself was invited to speak privately. The 8-year-old squared his small shoulders, determination evident in his posture. Later, the judge would remark that seldom had she heard a child speak with such clarity about his own needs and desires. "I have two papas now," Mason had declared. "Papa E and Papa M. They're my family." The ruling granting Ethan permanent custody, with provisions acknowledging both Michael's role and visitation rights for Alex's mother, represented something rare in family court, a decision that prioritized a child's emotional reality over conventional definitions of family. As they exited the courthouse, reporters pressed forward with questions about this unconventional arrangement. Ethan, typically private, surprised himself by stopping. "Family isn't about biology," he said simply. "It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves without conditions." Michael's professional battles paralleled their legal ones. The shareholder rebellion gained momentum, with formal complaints filed questioning his fitness as CEO. The board meeting to determine his future stretched for hours, voices rising and falling behind closed doors, while Michael calmly presented the company's record-breaking quarterly results. Sarah Robertson, now board chairwoman, ended the debate with uncharacteristic bluntness. "If we push Michael out for being authentic about his family, we destroy everything this company claims to stand for." The vote to retain him wasn't unanimous, but it was decisive enough. That evening, Michael unveiled his own surprise, the official launch of the Donovan Family Foundation, dedicated to providing legal support for LGBTQ families navigating adoption and custody challenges. The announcement coincided with Ethan accepting a position as medical director at a new clinic serving LGBTQ youth, combining his technical training with personal experience. Their wedding was held at the restaurant where they first met, transformed with simple elegance rather than extravagance. Mason, dressed in a miniature suit with a dinosaur pin, carried the rings with solemn importance. The most moving moment came not from their vows, but from the small boy's carefully prepared speech. "I used to be scared I'd forget Papa Alex," Mason said, his voice wavering slightly. "But Papa E taught me that love doesn't go away, it just makes more room. And Papa M showed me that family can grow even when you're not looking for it." Alex's mother, seated in the front row, wiped tears as she watched her grandson blossom within the embrace of this unconventional family that had somehow found space to include her too. The healing hadn't been instant or easy, but it had come, proof that love could transcend grief, prejudice, and traditional boundaries. Their story wasn't about perfect endings, but about the courage to begin again after loss, to recognize love in unexpected places, and to fight for the family you choose. Have you ever found connection or belonging in places you never expected? Share your story in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful reminder that none of us are truly alone comes from hearing how others found their way home. Subscribe to Heart Stories for more tales of resilience, love, and the infinite ways humans find to build bridges across the divides that separate us.